everyone, this is Keith Scott from Apple City, Australia. I'm one of the voices that will manage you loose. It's time to watch Relentless and Unstoppable. And so give it up for your main hosts, Douglas Kelly and Andy McPhee.
Well, blessings to those teachers that stood out to you and that's awesome that they had an impact on you. Um I wanted to take a different because you've mentioned that you weren't always in like public school, right? So what was your time like in homeschool, but also more or less what brought you to that homeschool system?
Okay, so, after elementary school ended, I went into middle school. That was the first time as a student up and even in my life where I had multiple teachers with different sets of rules. I was born during the time that autism was starting to be known about. And, schools had fallen behind on how to properly treat people with autism. And, back in the 90s and 80s and 70s and up until around the 2000s, autism was known about, but no one knew how to connect with someone with that. And so I also had ADHD and undiagnosed bipolar type 2 and GAD. And so the deal was when I was going through school, I was having some, behaviors that sort of disrupted some people and disrupted the classes and everything. And a lot of it was also fueled by addiction because I was addicted to soda, which ruled over me for 17 years. And so it was just, I was dealing with a lot of stress. And so when I came into middle school, it was sort of a stepping stone, but in a way that wasn't good. In my first year, I had so many teachers with different sets of rules that it was just middle school became more confusing for me than it really needed to be. I couldn't keep track of everything in one sitting. And, there were a lot of teachers I had that weren't really connecting with me or vice versa. Communication broke down. And so I barely avoided flunking my grade in the first middle school year. But then the next year, after only a few months, my parents fell out with well, not just my parents, my teachers and my IEP and my parents fell out with each other over some disagreements of how to approach my education. And so my parents, well, actually my mom, because my dad was sort of distant and busy, but mama basically took me home and homeschooled me while also balancing her psychological career. And so it was two jobs she did for me in one sitting. And it was, and I'm going to tell you, Donovan, that my mom was fully justified in the reasons for disagreeing with the IEP people, and
Of
she had a
course.
reason, and she had a very good reason for, taking me out of school that year because I was physically safe. The issue was, there were mistakes made by the IEP people and by the school, and they didn't, that was another thing. My mom faced a lot of criticism from people growing up because of her boundaries she had for me, and also because she wanted to make sure that people went easy on me as I learned to manage the world. And there were a lot of people that would have purposely made people on the spectrum their lives so miserable during education. And so there was a lot of bickering and kerfuffling on both ends. And so it was just safety wise and for my education's sake, I had to be homeschooled that year.
Wow, and I can understand when you said that the education system fell behind when it came to certain disabilities. And I've read studies and I've been in it myself. And yeah, it did a lot of people a lot of disservice. And I can understand that. Yes.
Yeah, and I would fully agree, that schooling to this day still fully doesn't fully address the issues that humans face, and schooling could definitely be better. So yeah, I would agree with you, that schooling has started to catch up with, people's different abilities, but they're still falling behind in other aspects. And even to this day, there are a lot of people that don't really want to return to schooling, or they've spoken out about ways that, schooling has been deficient for them. And so I don't think there's ever going to be a perfect system, but I think that, there's still a lot that needs to be addressed. So,
I 100%.
Gee, that's all we have for Relentless and Unstoppable. So tune into the next episode to hear more amazing stories from amazing guests. This is Keith Scott from Sydney, Australia saying so long, and I'm smarter than the average bear. Gee.